Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to the Marcy's Magic Podcast, where I, your host, Marcy, will be talking to you all about God, love, spiritual evolution, and so much more. So, for quite some time, people have been telling me that I need to talk about my story more. And here we fucking go. So, here it is. I'm not going to tell you my entire life story because it's not relevant to the pieces of information that I want to share with you. But what I do want to tell you is the fact that last year could have been my Joker's origin story. Oh my god, she fucked me right up. I was being beaten left, right, and centre. So much grief, heartache, betrayal, all of it, one thing after another, often multiple things at the same time, right? Not good. But I'm out here. I'm out here thriving. And to put things into a perspective, when I came back to the UK mid-November, because I was living in Spain, then I moved to Poland for 5 months, and yeah, mid-November I came back to the UK. I was so broken that I would literally be losing sleep because I'd be trying to fall asleep and I would just bawl my eyes out over things that I was trying to heal from. So, yeah, just to put it into perspective, like things really weren't good. And this is not at all a cry for help. I'm just saying that things were genuinely, completely, objectively difficult. And I really strongly believe that a lot of people in my situation, they would have crumbled. The amount of times that I have cried to my best friend Emily, and she was just like, you know what, no one else would be handling this as well as you. So I want to share with you some of my tricks and reasonings as to why I have been able to get through a year that could have easily been my Joker's origin story and come out of it fucking shining, doing the best that I have done in number of years, the best that I have done since being self-employed, and the whole lot. So let's do it. But first, coffee. So my reality is that love is everything, and anything that isn't love is an illusion. And all interactions with people can be dissected into either coming from a place of love or coming from a lack of love. So this reality is something that allows me to hold depths, like absolute depths of duality. Because when I was going through all the grief and heartbreak of last year, and to put it into a bit more of a perspective, there were certain things that were happening that were completely out of my control, that were just objectively really challenging life events. But there were also certain things that were a result of interactions with certain people that were the challenges. And this will make sense when I continue to talk about it. So, as these things were going on, I held duality in my life by noticing where these experiences were coming from. So, for those challenging life events that were completely out of my control, yes, they were very heartbreaking, and me sending all my love towards it was not going to fix the situation, right? This is by no means spiritual bypassing. This is getting real about your and mine ability to handle challenging experiences. So my cat is going wild. So when those events were occurring, I knew there's literally nothing that can change it until time has passed, more information, yeah, more information has been revealed. That's the word that I was looking for, but obviously intervention is also very relevant to this. Um, so how did I stay grounded in the love? Well, I gave that love to myself and the other people involved in the situation so that we'd be stronger. And did it fix how we felt about it? No, it didn't. But it sure made it a lot easier. That's it. I'm not telling you that love is going to be the complete cure for all shitty situations, because I see this so much in a spiritual community where spiritual bypassing occurs, and it's kind of like asking you to just, spread love. But like, no, there's certain events that are genuinely just completely objectively shit. But it's about how you handle it. So when you return to that place of love and still find love within that, within your life and what is real as those events happen, it will make your life a lot easier, a lot smoother. It means that as your heart is breaking, yes, it's breaking from the pain, but it also means more love is pouring out. And it got to a point last year where I was just so fucking lost. I was like, what is actually happening in my life? I was juggling a million things at once. I didn't have much time to myself. And I started to have these thoughts of like, I need to change my whole business. And I was just like, oh, great, just another thing to add onto the plate. And I honestly I was like, I have no idea what's at the end of this. I have no idea what life is going to be in 2 months. Like, that was an objective truth. I had not the slightest clue of what my life was going to look like in 2 months' time, right? So that could have quite easily sent me into panic and anxiety. And even though, yes, it wasn't pleasant, I did what I knew. I surrendered it to God. I was like, honestly, God, help me out with this one. I have no fucking idea. You obviously have a plan for me. Help me. And I found that because love is my reality. The more I allowed myself and my heart to break, because that is my approach, right? There's no need for bypassing any emotions, brushing them off, trying to like be strong or whatever. That doesn't exist in my world. What exists is just being and feeling and noticing what is present and what's coming up, because that is your reality, and there's literally not a point in trying to deny it. So because I was feeling lost and confused, I was like, okay, help me out here, God. And I heard God's voice so much more than what I allowed it to break, because when you have an idea, when you have a plan for your life, you're often very focused in where you're going, and as humans, we're obsessed with control. And a lot of people listening may be thinking like, oh no, I surrender, like I trust, I don't control. You're wrong. And I'm telling you, you're wrong, because we are all guilty of this, because that's literally the human condition, to want to know what's next. Even when you're the most trusting person that surrenders all the time, you will have periods where you are trying to control your life, where you're trying to control the outcomes, and there's literally nothing wrong. Like, that's just what happens. That's what we're meant to work with as humans. So I was starting to hear God's word more, because I surrendered all control, because I realized I had no control. Because how am I meant to have control over my life if I don't even know what's going to happen in 2 months? And it took an enormous amount of trust to be able to surrender into it. But the way that I see it is, well, if I don't know, but I do know that love's God for me is enormous and it's never going to let me down, then obviously I can't rely on my own perceptions of life right now, because they're very jumbled and very unpredictable because of the events of my life right now. So I literally have nothing else to do other than just to give it up to God. And that's what made the journey so much smoother, because the more you try to hold on to something that doesn't exist, the more you try to push and create something out of nothing, when this particular season of your life is actually about complete surrender and trust, then the more you're going to struggle. Because again, you're trying to create something out of nothing. And what can happen in those moments of surrender is that it opens you up to such a field of possibilities that go beyond your cognitive comprehension right now. Because I started to have these intuitive insights into the fact that I had to change everything about my business, like the whole model. I was a business coach at the time, and my intuition was like, no more, we're not doing that no more, we're going back to your roots, you're going to be a spiritual teacher, you're going to preach the word of God. And I was like, okay, sure. At that point, I have stopped taking new clients on because I was so busy with life and attending to all these events. Suddenly, I was having a moment of prayer in the sun, and I got this intuitive download of a new offer. It was the Womb and Heart offer designed. It was literally like the intuitive message was like, this offer is just a one-off for one person. The person that is going to read the marketing, they're going to know it's for them, and they're going to purchase it. And I was like, okay, let's try this, let's test it. And that is exactly what happened. The offer got snapped up super quick. Not the first time that I posted about it, but the second time, yes. So what happened actually is like I posted about it, and then didn't hear anything. Then I genuinely just completely forgot because I was not taking any more clients. So I was just like, okay, whatever. And then one time, once I had a bit more space in life, I remembered about it again. I was like, oh, that offer, I forgot that was sent to me. So I posted about it again, and it went, and it went. And we had the most beautiful time working with this client, guiding her back into her womb, her creative power, and her heart space. And the results of it have been immense. And that just really always reminds me how important it is to surrender and to not question the word of God. Because if you're receiving these intuitive downloads of like, this is the thing that you need to do, this is the path that you need to do, fighting with it, trying to make it make sense is not going to work, because a lot of the time intuition doesn't make sense. And you will see these inspiring posts on Instagram all the time about how, like, following your intuition is not going to make sense. Like, you just need to do it. And like, yes, that's true. But people that talk about it, they don't tell you how grounded you need to be in yourself in order to actually believe that's your intuition and completely, wholeheartedly trust that. And there's so much talk about surrender. So let's talk about what surrender actually is, because I feel that a lot of us have a limited capacity for surrender. We're like, okay, yep, I'm gonna do this intuitive thing, then I'm gonna surrender, I'm gonna go have a day off, and then when I come back, like, everything's gonna work out fine, I'll have received $1 million into my bank account, and like, it's gonna be great. Because we put a limit on the capacity, because we're saying, okay, good, I trust you. I trust that you're going to provide for me and that you're going to look after me, but on my terms. And that's not how it works, because a true surrender is a complete process of coming back home to yourself and coming back home to God. The two need to coexist in great harmony. So if you're telling yourself, okay, I'm just going to surrender to the process, but you're putting limits to it, you're working within a capacity, then you're not completely surrendered. Like, yes, you are surrendered, but what I want you to do is, when you surrender more. Because when you surrender more, that is when you come back home to God, which is when you're able to sail the rocky seas of life with so much more love and so much more ease, because you're allowing God to guide you. And honestly, in those situations, I don't know how I would have made it without God, because there were certain moments where it felt like God's guidance and God's love for me was the only thing that I had. Ooh, just got a shiver. That is the truest reflection of God's plan, of God's beauty, because I did completely surrender it without any conditions or expectations of where it was going to get me. I was just like, God, you do whatever you need to do. Tell me whatever I need to do, and I will just go ahead with it. And the results have been fucking incredible. But one thing that I also want to highlight here, it's not all about results, because what I've noticed a lot is that people will be like, okay, I'm going to surrender because this will be the outcome, because this is what I'm going to receive by the end of it. And again, we're putting conditions on the process, and that is not true surrender. That is not true trust in yourself or God. So surrender is nothing if it lacks faith. So you need to have faith. You need to hold onto your faith in order to actually immerse yourself in your ability to trust the process. And like, think about how often do you sit down to like meditate, journal, create, or you're like, I'm going to take a day off because I will feel better by the end of it. We're always chasing the next thing, and it's the devil is in the details, because you don't think that is attachment, because you're thinking, I'm going to take a day off, I'm going to detach, I'm going to do life, and as a result of that, I'll receive. Like, that is not how it works. The way that it's going to work, God's way, is to just be completely present and notice what's happening and immerse yourself in the present moment, because that is the only thing that exists. So that is also another thing that made sure I stay connected to my faith, to God's plan, and was able to sail the rocky seas of last year with an open heart, because I was incredibly present. I wasn't trying to think about what was on the end of it, because I had no idea what was going to be at the end of it. And think about, how often have you tried to attach a certain outcome to something you were doing, to maybe not be disappointed, but to not receive in how you wanted to receive. And it is because you're placing those outcomes and expectations. Whereas if you are genuinely, completely in the present moment for the sake of being in the present moment, that is when you are wholeheartedly open-hearted, open to God's word, and grounded within your faith in God and yourself. And that is the key. That is the key, because when you have that, it turns you into a grounded motherfucker who is able to hold duality for whatever fucking trauma is happening around you, because you know that you've got you, God's got you, and even though there is incredibly stressful and traumatic things happening around you, they are not a true reflection of everything that is happening within your life, because there are still incredible things, there are still sources of love that you can tap into when nothing else makes sense. So what I want to draw back on now is the idea of being love and returning to love when it comes to dealing with other people being the source of our upset and stress. And that is when we get most tested, right? Because your human response will be to not be so nice back, or to shut our heart off, to protect ourselves, to give the same back, give the same energy that they're giving you. And I'll be honest with you, I tried to give people the same energy that they were giving me, it's not for me. It is not for me because I am completely radiant with love, and love is my state. It is the ultimate source that I'm tapped into. It is what my soul is made up of, and this is how I lead my life. So, matching to people's energy would require more effort from me to lower myself into their states. And I've tried, and it felt so fucking unnatural that I just had to get back to myself. I had to get back to being the being of love and continue being me, because no love is wasted. And a lot of people get caught up in the idea of, like, they don't deserve it. But why are you deciding what they deserve and what not? And it could be that, someone's saying a lot of shitty things to you, doing really shitty things to you, absolutely. But you are not the person to place judgment. Like, why do you think you have the right to be placing all these judgments? And I'm not saying that your feelings are not valid, because you have every right to feel how you feel, absolutely. Address it, process it, feel the rage towards that person, do everything that you need to do. But you are not the person to decide that the person who's caused you harm is someone who doesn't deserve love, because their actions, their hurtful actions, are often coming from a place of their own lack of love. And this is not at all to excuse shitty behaviour or abusive behaviour, absolutely not. But it does put things into a perspective. Like, if they are acting the way that they're acting because they are missing the love from their lives, often very unconsciously, then you giving your hate energy, trying to match their hateful energy, is only gonna take away from you. And I'm not saying you have to go and love the person who's been abusive to you, not at all. And if anything, give yourself more love if you have experienced that. But don't try to place judgments where you don't need to, and instead try to trust that God is going to deal with them in how God sees fit. You're not the person that has to essentially be the executor. Oh, it stinks. So when I was dealing with many unpleasant situations and people last year, that's how I was approaching it. I was seeing that actually how they are moving is because they're not coming from a place of love. And even though this is not okay and I'm hurt, I send them my love. And that doesn't mean that I felt like I held the responsibility of healing them or, actively trying to make them a better person. Absolutely not. That was not my responsibility, because it is not your responsibility to change people and to help them see that love. But it did allow me to stay grounded within myself. It didn't make the situation go away. It was still very much there, but it meant I wasn't stressed about it, because I was like, you know what? Yes, it hurts, but it's whatever. I'll deal with it, and God will deal with it. And that is literally all that is needed. And I really feel like some people could have a problem with this approach, especially if you acknowledge it or compare it to really big and catastrophic cases. Absolutely. But essentially, that's your worldview. If you decide that, this is not true, horrible things happen, horrible people exist, and the world is a horrible place, then you've got every right to think that, yes. But I really do feel like love is the answer, because even though it doesn't take away the accountability that we need to be holding ourselves and other people to. And it doesn't necessarily excuse shitty actions. I do feel that when you take this approach of love, the world does become a better place, because instead of you trying to lower your vibration to meet the hateful energies of other people, like I said before, you're staying within your light. And that is the best thing that you can do, because from that moment onwards, things can only continue getting better. So I stayed open hearted, even though the world was crushing me. And for a lot of people, that reaction would be to close the heart and greet the unpleasantries with more unpleasantries, because it wasn't natural, because having a closed heart is not your natural state. So it's always going to take more from you. It's always going to be more detrimental, even if trying to look at it from a lens of love feels more challenging. But it only feels more challenging at the start because you're probably uncomfortable with feeling, holding, receiving, and giving love. But when you make peace with that, everything else becomes smooth sailing. There is definitely a lot to be said about giving, receiving, and holding love. That plays a part in that, which I'm not going to go into right now. But it's definitely a key takeaway point for you that I invite you to reflect on, is what is your ability to give, hold, and receive love, and what kind of conditions are you placing on yourself, your situations, and what do you do, and how can you love those situations more? How can you grace yourself and those situations with more love? So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next week.